A lot of scuttlebutt about the Rockets being open for business. What does that mean? Does that mean they're willing to trade up? Well, we've heard Portland, the team picking ahead of them, is willing to trade as well. So maybe there's a way that you can move up a spot to get you one of those top 3 players in the draft. Maybe you trade down. Maybe you trade down for picks. Maybe you trade away for a player. You've got all sorts of options. So, Cody, the big thing is you got to decide what you want to do with that number 4 pick. And more of it is not just who we're going to draft, but are we going to draft there? What are we going to do with that actual pick? Because the way the Rockets handle this is going to determine how serious they are about winning next year, right? Like if they put that pick in a package deal to try to get Jaylen Brown or Karl Anthony Towns or Pascal Siakam, whatever, then they're trying to win next year. Like that is their goal, is to win, and not just like win 30 games, like actually take a big, big step next season. But if they're willing to stick and pick, or if they're willing to trade down for more draft picks, then it's clear that this team is not focused on 2023-24, but more focused on the years beyond that.
I'll be really intrigued to see if it's a trade, like financially, what's the commitment to the new guy, because that obviously immediately eats up some of your cap space, and it becomes pretty difficult to see how you're making 2 significant free agent additions if you're adding a player who's already taken care of to a large financial degree via trade. So really, if you're adding any of the guys that you just talked about, BK, then there's probably room. You can make it happen for somebody else. But any sort of trade that brings in a good player or an almost star or a star is going to eat up a good amount of that money that you've got available. And look, the NBA salary cap has got so many loopholes and rules and do this and do that and figure this thing out. So you could probably make it work where you're still bringing in 3 guys. But yeah, maybe the selection based on the position that player plays is one of those things that tips their hand on what they're going to do with the money in free agency. I mean, if you invest in a young guy that is for sure a point guard, or you move around and you call Charlotte and you end up with their pick and their selection, and you're taking Scoot Henderson, are you really chasing James Harden as hard as we think they're chasing him? Are you really chasing some of these other guys who play point guard as hard as we think they may chase a point guard? Or are they going to go a different route with their free agency money and how they go about that thing? I'd like to see them add 3 players of note. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and it might just be as simple as draft, sign.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them add 3 players of note. But if you added 2 really awesome players because you traded the 4th pick for one of them and you signed the other guy, I'll live with that. But you'd like to see them add 3 players of note, and maybe it's just as simple as a draft pick and 2 free agents.
Well, they've got the resources to make that happen, right? Yeah. They've got the draft pick. Hell, they've got 2 in the first round. Obviously, number 20 is not going to be as impactful as number 4, but they do have $70 million in cap space. They could really add more than 3 players of note if they wanted to. Jake, the early reports out of Charlotte is that they're going to take Brandon Miller with the number 2 pick. That's who they're interested in taking. So this goes to Cody's point about the point guard. Like, hey, you might be able to move up a spot to get Scoot. You really might. There have been reports out of Portland, once again, that they're open for business, and also they're still trying to build around Damian Lillard, who's also a point guard. So you might be able to move up a spot to get Scoot Henderson. That's the case. Yeah, that probably takes you out of the James Harden sweepstakes. You might be moving on from Kevin Porter Jr. in that instance, and boom, your entire offseason plans change just like that. So they might already be working the phones to try to figure out what it would take to move up a spot, and then they got to figure that out first before anything else comes into play.
I just hope their plans is not James Harden. I'm so out on James Harden after the report from Chris Haynes yesterday, where it was basically Chris Haynes being the mouthpiece for James Harden, making it known to everyone he wants a 4-year deal and basically wants to go somewhere where he could be the old James Harden again. I just hope that's not part of their plans, man. Like those comments basically from Harden make me feel like there's no reason whatsoever they should be in on him if you got to give him a 4-year deal just to get him to commit to your team.
So that was going to be sort of my comment, is if they want to go down the James Harden route, I'd like for them to go down the James Harden route under their terms, not James's terms.
I mean, the quote, if you missed it yesterday, from Chris Haynes of Bleacher Report, the Rockets have long been a rumored destination, but sources say Harden will only entertain suitors that present a competitive roster and the basketball freedom for the star to be himself. I think you can maybe swallow Harden on a 4-year deal if – that sounded wrong. But I think you could maybe deal with James Harden on a 4-year deal if, let's say, you won the lottery and you had Wembanyama, so you have James Harden to kind of be that facilitator, point guard role. He led the NBA in assists, and if the last year of that contract's an albatross, you deal with it because you think Wembanyama's being put in a situation to maybe have success right away. But when you have pick 4 and you still might need to give Harden a 4-year max level contract, those comments, no thank you. I'm out on James Harden.
Yeah, but if you found out that James Harden wanted to sign a 2-year deal with, maybe a mutual option or something like that, where it's really only a maximum of a 2-year commitment with James Harden, and the Rockets sort of get Harden playing by their rules, like what we believe they would want James Harden to be, like that's a pretty attractive option. I mean, I'd rather chase that James Harden dream than have them spend a whole hell of a bunch of money on a guy like, I don't know, Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton's not getting you anywhere, not doing anything for this organization. Your pick's going to be back in the lottery again next year if Chris Middleton's your big addition this offseason. But if you can get Harden under, I'm with you. I don't want Harden under the Harden agreement. I want Harden under the Rockets level of commitment. And the scary part is they may be ready to make the commitment to James Harden under his terms. But it would be the most savvy way to approach the Harden situation with a shorter commitment and the hope that, hey, he's the vet. He's coming in. He's going to run the show. He's going to distribute. He's going to score when he needs to score. The young guys will learn some things from him, and you just grow. And then maybe at the end of 2 years, you got to make an additional commitment to James Harden, and he finishes out his career. But the big basketball freedom, get to be James, do whatever I want, 4-year commitment, I don't want that.
Yeah, the 4-year commitment is tough because I think somebody out there is going to offer him that deal. I really do. And I wouldn't love for that to be the Rockets. I'm more on board with Harden coming back than I think most people are at this point, but 4 years is a lot for a guy who's going to be 34 at the start of next season, and for a guy whose play has already started to decline a lot. And Jake, you brought this up yesterday. He's dealt with injuries in recent years. He used to be a model of consistency and a model of good health, and once he put on that fat suit, yeah, he took the fat suit off, but the injuries, they never stopped with James Harden from that point on. So that's something you have to worry about as well. And I still don't know exactly what he's looking for. I ultimately think James Harden's going to be like most free agents in any sports where they're looking for the best deal. Like whatever the best contract is, that's where James Harden's going to go. Yeah, he wants to be on a competitor. I don't think he's ring chasing. Like if he really wanted to win, he'd go to Phoenix and take a lot less to play with Kevin Durant and Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Or he'd go to Milwaukee, or he'd go, hell, maybe stay in Philadelphia. I mean, there's so many better options than the Rockets if he was trying to ring chase and win a championship right away. If he's looking for basketball flexibility and freedom, then he'd come to Houston. He'd go to a bad team that doesn't have another established star, so he could kind of be himself. Ultimately, I think that's just hogwash. I really think he's going to whoever gives him the best deal. And your fear is, if you don't want James Harden here, is that the Rockets are the one team who are willing to go 4 years, and that's too much for me with him and the way he's played at this stage in his life.
4 years for a 34-year-old who's dealt with injury problems and is awful in elimination games. Any big moment, James Harden's known for being terrible in those spots. The NBA team that pays him that should be ashamed of themselves.
I'm excited to watch the erotic entrepreneurs of this city organize and march and yell, 4 more years, 4 more years, 4 more years.
Who are they going to be talking about?
James Harden.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Could be some other rallies going on about some other people.
No, not presidential.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Not state level elections either?
No.
Just James Harden related.
Yeah, James Harden, 4 more years.
Well, the strippers will be doing that for sure.